one of the common themes that came up in a few of the books that I read recently, and when I say recently, I mean like the time that summer was happening to about now, were some of the things that we as wives don't recognize that our husbands need. And I kind of want to talk about that. So, two of the books that I have in mind that I want to speak on are The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands by Dr. Laura Schlessinger, and Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, an oldie but a goodie by John Gray. And I know these two books get a lot of hate, but I think that they actually have a lot of valuable information. Now, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus is more of a read for either men or women, while The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands, a man can read it, but really he would be reading it from the perspective of like, oh yeah, that's so true, or like, no, I don't really feel that way. Whereas a woman reading The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands will really be able to get some valuable insight about how to navigate her relationship. And so I just kind of want to talk about what I think are the key takeaways from those books, and about what I feel are things that need to be shared with women, particularly wives, about what is needed from them on behalf of their husband in a relationship. Now, I did narrow it down to 10 things. These things are not all inclusive. You would have to read the books yourself, friend. I do have both of these books linked in my bio on TikTok. Depending on when you're listening to this podcast, I'll probably have a bio on every other platform too, but that's another note for another day. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. I think respect is the number one. We all know it, but do we give it? You know? The one thing that I can say is in The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands, Dr. Laura really does a good job emphasizing that men need respect, obviously, and that feeling disrespected by their wives is something that actually deeply impacts them in ways that they aren't even always able to articulate. She does note that men often feel unloved or unappreciated when they're overly criticized, when they're belittled, when they're dismissed, even when it's like lighthearted humor. We just have to be very careful with the words that we say to our husbands, and even sometimes the way that we interact with them with our actions, right? Like, she really drives home this point that a man thrives on respect and affirmation from his wife, which obviously reinforces his sense of self-worth. And if you want your husband to feel encouraged, if you want your husband to feel the love, because we think that we show love in certain ways, but our husbands receive love from us through respect. Yeah. Now, when it comes to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, what I like is that John Gray talks about how men need to feel respected, particularly when it comes to their abilities and their decisions. So he actually goes into, there's this section where he talks about how when it comes to masculine things, a man really needs to be affirmed and respected in those decisions. And so when a woman shows respect for those opinions instead of disdain, when she shows respect for those actions, the judgments that he makes, it can really make him feel valued and capable, right? And this is something that's even alluded to in The Secrets of Fascinating Womanhood. One of the things that she mentioned, that he mentioned, David Corey, in that book, one of the things that he mentioned, it injures the male ego, is this disdain or disgust for the man's opinion, and always over talking him in a way, or like always pouring cold water on his ideas, because it just makes him feel disrespected. It makes him feel small. And it's one thing to disrespect a man, but if a man doesn't feel respected by his wife, that really does take a toll on him, right? So yeah, respect. And then I would say the second thing is appreciation. And I know somebody's gonna be listening to this like, duh, but do we appreciate our husbands enough? And again, I'll start with Dr. Laura. One thing that I like about the way that she wrote The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands, she stresses that men, just like women, y'all, because we love to be appreciated too, men need to feel appreciated. They need to know that their hard work, their efforts, their contributions to the family, all of that stuff is noticed, that it's appreciated, that we feel like it's valuable, right? Even if it's work outside the home, the way that they handle chores, the way that they cut the grass, the way that they bring home the bacon. They just need to know that their efforts in a relationship are not going unnoticed. They just want to hear thank you. And it's hard to believe that it's hard for us as wives to understand that, because that's the very thing that we want. We want to be thanked. We want, and we don't want somebody to say, well, why should I thank you for doing what you're supposed to do when it comes to taking care of the children, when it comes to dinner, when it comes to cleaning, whatever. And we are so quick to pull that card when it comes to our husbands. Well, why should I thank him for something that he's supposed to do? Because, girl, it makes him feel appreciated. And that's how he feels loved. Right? Now, in Men Are From Mars, what John Gray does is he highlights how men feel loved when they're appreciated for what they do in the same regard, but he adds this aspect of men needing this positive reinforcement to feel motivated and to feel loved. So not only do they need to feel appreciated and respected, but they need that reinforcement. They need that feedback, right? Even if it's in simple gestures like expressing the gratitude for the work that he's doing, acknowledging his efforts, thanking him for taking the trash out, right? And these are the things that we tend to shy away from because we feel like we shouldn't have to do it. We shouldn't have to say it. Well, why do I have to do that? He's supposed to do it, but it goes a long way. Now, I bring up these two topics together often, but the next one is admiration. Dr. Laura points out that the husbands crave admiration from their wives. It's almost like fuel for them. And this is interesting because I made a post from Let Unc Talk. He's this creator on TikTok, and he did this video where he's talking to his daughters and his wife, and he's trying to bring home the fact that men are not romantic. Now, the problem with talking about stuff like this in an open space like TikTok is most people don't take the time to really hear what you're saying. He was bringing home this point that I feel like parallels with admiration. He's saying men are not romantic. They do the things that are romantic because they love their wives. And I agree with that. What man do you know fantasizes about being romantic in a way that women do? We will have these ideas in our head. Even if we're single, we know what type of romance we want. When a man is single, do you think he's out here thinking about how he's going to sweep the next woman off her feet? No. But when he gets with the next woman, he's going to be romantic so that he can. And I feel like if you really listen to that to get what I'm saying, it'll make sense and you won't even be offended by it. Like you won't miss it. But he's saying that men are not romantic in the way that women believe, oh, this man is romantic, this man is not. He's like, no, men are not romantic. Any romance that you see a man exhibiting is because he loves that woman and he's seeking to be validated by that woman through the act of romance. And so that reminds me of this craving for admiration that husbands have from their wives. They want to feel special in their wife's eyes, right? Whether through compliments, admiration, their physical appearance, or baby, you did such a good job with that. I really like the way that you did that. And I like to brag on my man. But I've learned over the course of time to really be appreciative because my husband is not a romantic guy and I'm not mad at him for that. But my husband exhibits excellence in romance because that's what I want, right? But if he was with someone who didn't care about those things, he probably wouldn't do it. My husband does things, very sweet things for me that I know he does not want to do, but he does it because I want to do them. And for me, that is the ultimate level of romance and intimacy. I spoke about this in that same video where I wanted to take the kids on this crazy road trip. And I was like, this is extreme, but I'm going to ask for it because I know if I ask my husband and it's within reason, he's going to be like, yeah. And we did it. We went on this long 40-hour road trip because I wanted to take the kids to different parts of the country and see different things. And he went along for it. He didn't care to do it. He didn't care to be the one to do it, but he enjoyed it and he loved it because the kids were happy. The kids were laughing. I was thankful. I was appreciative, when we stopped because he did all the driving. I probably drove 2 hours. He did all the driving. So when we stopped at the hotels, I was also massaging him and showing that admiration and that appreciation for what he was doing, right? And we can be so blind to that as women. We're just like, oh yeah, whatever. But when your husband is doing nice things like that, like for our anniversary, I really wanted to go hiking and I wanted to do a picnic and I didn't want to set it up. So my husband did. Does he like hiking and picnicking? No. But does he do it because he loves me? Yes. Am I going to drag him to do it all the time knowing that that's not his cup of tea? No. But I love when he does it and I express that appreciation, and that's why he does it. And so that's what the guy was getting at in that post. He's like, no, men are not romantic. They do these things for the approval of their women, right? And so even in Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Dr. Gray emphasizes the importance of this admiration too, especially when it comes to the husband's sense of pride in his achievements. So similarly, if your husband does something romantic for you or does something nice for you, he wants that praise. But even more so when he does it for something that's masculine or for something in his job, in his field, he feeds on that. He needs that esteem boost, but not just from anybody, from his wife. It helps to boost his confidence. So they need that admiration. And sometimes we shy away from it, or we're embarrassed of it, or we try to downplay it. And it's just not necessary. It's not necessary at all. Be appreciative and give your husband that admiration. I would say the next is definitely affection and physical intimacy. Y'all knew that one was coming up. Y'all knew it was coming. And I think there wasn't any real distinction between the two, but I'll say that Dr. Schlessinger says that men need affection and not just sexual intimacy, but they also need that physical touch. Like, we know that the men need affection. We know that it's always on their mind. We sometimes as women will have that reservation, but she's saying they do need sexual intimacy, but they also just need physical touch outside of when you're being intimate in the bedroom. Right? They need their wives to show that affection through small gestures, holding his hand, hugging him, kissing him throughout the day. And this is something that sometimes we complain about as wives, that our husbands aren't intimate throughout the day. They just want to be intimate when it's time to get it on. But we can exhibit those traits in the same way that we want to see them for ourselves. Right? Because those are the things that make them feel desired, that makes them feel loved, that makes them feel wanted. And we don't pay attention to that as much as we should as wives. We as a collective, not every single wife is, hear me out. And then the thing about Dr. Gray, he basically said that physical intimacy is a major need for men. And he goes on to say that men often see that physical affection as a way to feel emotionally connected and loved by their wives, right? Again, this regular physical touch and the regular engagement with their wife through sexual activity and through physical touch, again, outside of the bedroom, is critical to the way that men experience love from their wives. Because too long without intimacy, the man will continue to perform his duties because he loves you, but it makes him feel rejected. And nobody wants to feel rejected. We are at number 5, and I wrote down to be needed. To be needed. They need to feel needed. Men want to feel needed in their relationship. They want to feel like their wives need them. They want to feel like their children need them. But it's deeper than just like, oh, I need you for money. They want to know that you need their presence, their input, their opinion, their help to make decisions. That's the things that make them feel like men. And I feel like I didn't really distinguish between the two because these points were very similar based on what I remember in my experience in reading. I will add that I think Dr. Gray went more into, in Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, I think he went more into a man's desire to feel needed, but also to feel useful, right? And it sounds like they're one and the same, but, they want to be a protector, they want to be a provider, but they also want to be a problem solver. They want to know that their wives rely on them for more than just provision and protection, because that is what strengthens their sense of purpose and emotional connection. So the next one is support and encouragement. And I think that Dr. Laura stressed that husbands really need emotional support, especially when they're facing challenges, right? Whether that be at work or in their personal lives, but they really do need the support of their wife, and the support of their wives in a way that is not condescending or like too too hands-on. They don't want the wife to be giving unsolicited advice and advising them in any way that they didn't ask for. It's more so be a listening ear, offer encouragement, offer support without judgment, right? And I think that Dr. Gray also speaks about the need for that support. And I remember there was one section where he particularly addressed, where he specifically addressed why men are stressed, right? Or when they're facing these difficult situations, and when they're in those times, when they tend to withdraw, instead of the wife getting angered or frustrated because he's not talking to me, they just have to be understanding. He calls that when they go into their cave. Like when men go into their cave, what should they do? What should the woman do? And he talks about how you as a woman can support the man in his cave, right? And be there for him. Don't be judgmental. Don't try to bark at him until he comes out the cave. Just let him go into his cave and let him come out when he comes out. Just providing that space where he can feel supported and understood without being judged and without being condemned, so that he can function properly and he can still know that you support and encourage him. The 7th is space to recharge. The men need space to recharge, just like we need it. This is another one that's like, girl, we need that. So why do we think they don't need it? If it's time alone in the garage, watching TV, maybe a hobby, maybe they're going out with the boys. They require a little bit of solitude, y'all. They need a little freedom. Okay? They need to disconnect in order to feel recharged and ready to engage with us again, because having a family is a lot. And as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about myself. So if we as women know that we need time to withdraw and recharge, why do we think our husbands don't need the same thing? Right? And something else that was different, this was a distinction between the two books, and I think because Gray has more insight about being a man, right? I remember him discussing that whole concept of men going into the cave, and he specifically said that men do tend to retreat when they're stressed and need time to think. And this is something that when we don't receive it well as women, because then we think something is wrong, and something is wrong, but you're not the solution. You have to let him work it out, right? And we think that the withdrawal is about us. But typically our husbands will be very direct when it's about the relationship, and they'll be indirect and withdrawal when it's about other things, right? And I'm talking about healthy withdrawal, not like this man is out here cheating on you, so please. But it's essential, and something that Dr. Gray talked about was that a wife needs to be understanding and patient during those times. And saying how the more patient and understanding she can be when he retreats and tries to problem solve on his own, and the more supportive and encouraging she is when he comes back, the better they'll be able to maintain a healthy, strong bond within their relationship, which is what we all want, right? And then number 8 is clear communication. Another one that's like, duh, girl. There was a section in the proper care and feeding of husbands, and I remember reading this on TikTok, and I was like, I fear the men are listening. We're just not being direct. Like, they are actually listening to us, because we always say that our husbands don't listen or they have poor communication, but they have a need for clear, direct communication. They don't like hints. They don't like for us to drop hints. They don't like for us to be indirect. They don't like for us to beat around the bush. They don't pick up on nonverbal cues in the way that we do. So if something is bothering you, don't assume that he's going to know why or what is bothering you. Just express those feelings directly. And obviously, what did we say? He needed respect. So address him directly and respectfully, friend. And there's actually a section about men and women communicating, and men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And Dr. Gray explains really well the struggle with indirect and emotional communication for men, because they're so direct. So he also says, they appreciate straightforward, factual communication. Just get to it, because it's really something that allows them to problem solve. It's something that allows them to address the issues head on without feeling overwhelmed or without feeling like there's too much emotion or complexity. They just want to get to the meat of the situation. Right? And then number 9 is confidence in his leadership. And sometimes this is hard because, girl, we refuse to submit. And so Dr. Laura talks about how men need their wives to trust and respect their leadership in the home, right? And even if they don't always make the perfect decisions, they still want to feel that their wives support them in their role as a leader of the family. So even if he's not always getting it right, even if he's not doing it in the way that you want him to, can we not still be respectful? Can we not still understand that he is the leader of the home, and he gets his confidence and his encouragement and his lift up from just being the leader and being appreciated in that role as a leader? And I don't think it's hard for us as women to recognize that. And I think we should do a little bit more digging when it comes to that, because a lot of us will say we trust our husbands lead, but then we strip them of every ability to lead. Not leave. Where you going? I'm coming with you. And then Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Dr. Gray actually speaks on how men are motivated by a sense of competence and leadership. So their ability to lead in any regard, but particularly their family, is something that motivates them. It makes them feel good, right? They want to feel good in their ability to lead. They need their wives' encouragement and support, again, in order to maintain that confidence. They need us to believe in their ability to lead. And then the last one is companionship and partnership. And that seems obvious too, because why do we get in relationships if we don't want companionship? So basically, men, they want to feel like their wives are not just romantic partners, but also companions and allies. Yes, we want to be intimate and we want to have sexy time, but they also want to feel like they have a good, if not best, friend. They want to share some of the same interests, be able to have fun together, be able to laugh, talk, sharpen iron a little bit. Because, of course, they're still going to maintain their relationships with their friends, their homies, whatever you want to call them. But they also want to have a level of communication and companionship within their marriage that's not just romantic. They want to be friends with us as well, right? And Dr. Gray actually talks about how men thrive when they feel like their wives are their true partners in life. So sharing those experiences, supporting each other, working together, even if you have mutual goals that you're working on, all of those things really work to create a deeper bond emotionally with your husband, not just physically. And so it's really important that we learn to emphasize that friendship and companionship within our marriages as well, because those are the things that our husbands need. So just to do a little recap, we talked about the things that our husbands need. I narrowed it down to 10, but I said this is not all inclusive. These are just the 10 that I feel like are the most important. Respect, appreciation, admiration, affection, and physical intimacy. To be needed, support and encouragement. They need space to recharge. Clear communication, confidence in their leadership, companionship, and partnership. Okay. And again, I primarily, I base this off of the reading from The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands and Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. But these are points that are also hit in some of the other books that we read, particularly The Secrets of Fascinating Womanhood, and even The Surrendered Wife. But I think that The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands and Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus did a really good job of really illustrating these points in an organized way. But yeah, men are not always good at expressing their needs, y'all. We just have to be more intuitive about the things that they need and more willing to work with them and to meet them on the needs that they do have. Okay? Because when we address the areas, let's be honest, it does strengthen the relationship, and it just helps our husbands to feel loved. We put so many ramifications around our relationship, and we make things difficult unnecessarily. Sometimes we want to feel loved and valued and connected to our husbands, but then we need to make sure that we're also putting in the energy and effort to make them feel loved and valued and connected. But anyway, we now have a blog, y'all. The blog is out. It is at justmichon.com. JUSTMICHON.com. Okay. There's a blog there. New blog posts are uploaded every Wednesday. The next podcast episode, what you're listening to right now, will be available every Friday. On Tuesdays, I read a new letter on YouTube, and I do my best to give a biblical perspective. And we will have a newsletter very, very soon. So thank you for being here. Thank y'all for pressuring me to do this podcast, because it really does help me to further articulate my sometimes controversial thoughts. And I will see you in the next episode.